Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're excited to have you. This workshop is the second workshop in the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation's Fall Workshop Series. I will put the fall workshop schedule in the chat so that you all can go ahead and plan for any others you might want to attend. I'll also put a survey link in the chat for you to fill out after the workshop. If you all will take a couple of minutes at the end to complete that, we really want your feedback so we can keep making these workshops relevant and helpful. The provider today is Taylor Smith. He is the Digital Merchant Product Manager at Walmart and also an adjunct professor in Walton teaching data analysis this fall. I'd ask that as many of you as possible keep your video on so we can keep this interactive and help our speaker out. And please make sure your mic is on mute and we will get going. Thanks, everyone.
Hey guys, like Natalie said, my name's Taylor Smith. I'm going to share my screen here. So let me get this going. All right, so you should be seeing my nice start with the problem rotating triangles here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chat in case people have questions as I'm going along. I can kind of see this over to the side. All right, so yeah, well, hey, I'm really glad you guys came out today. This is, I think, a really interesting topic, right? Because a lot of the times when we're talking about innovation or entrepreneurship, a lot of that gets sparked because, you know, someone goes, I have a great idea, right? I want to go out and build X. Unfortunately, a lot of the times when we go out and build X without really understanding the problem that we're trying to solve, we end up building X that no one buys, right? Or no one actually wants. And so what we want to do today is spend a little bit of time learning how to kind of take a step back from that solution and actually think about the problem. Okay, so let's just kind of dig right in. So we're gonna talk about why the problem is so important. I'm gonna try to give you a couple of tools that will help you in stepping back from that problem, and we're gonna talk a little bit of theory just to understand how kind of the industry thinks about these issues. First, we'll start off with who the heck am I, right? Natalie kind of introduced me. You know, I'm a product manager at Walmart. I've kind of jumped around to a couple different products that we build within Walmart. All of the stuff I've worked on is internal, right? So we're trying to solve problems that associates at Walmart have and then help them do their job better so they can turn around and serve the customer, right? So some of the things that just I've worked on has been, you know, helping merchants make better business decisions. Right now I'm working on kind of automating assortment drawing. So figuring out how all the stuff lays out on the shelf. So a lot of kind of a variety of things. But before that, I was an economics professor. And before that, I was a web developer for several years. So kind of jumped around a lot. But in all of those situations, both are in web application development, econ, and then now at Walmart, the thing that has been across all of those is I've been a problem solver, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So in my current role, I'm a product manager, and whether you want to go into product or whether you want to go into user experience or you want to be an entrepreneur, the job is very similar. If you think of that, product managers don't necessarily focus on designing solutions. They focus on defining and prioritizing problems. Right? So again, a lot of what I do is focused upon really trying to understand the problem that we're solving so that when we do end up building a solution, we're actually solving the right problem. So let's take a minute to actually talk about why this is important, right? Why do we care about the problem so much, more than the solution even sometimes? Is because one, it forces us to be user focused, right? So if we're obsessed with the problem, that means we have to be obsessed with who the user is, right? Because I don't have that problem, most likely, right? I'm going out and trying to solve someone else's problem. And to do that, I have to understand them backwards and forwards, right? It's not my problem. It's not the designer's problem. It's not the innovator's problem. It's the customer problem. And so being as focused on the customer as possible means you're going to end up succeeding. For those math nerds out there, you might understand the difference between a local and a global maxima. But for those of you who aren't, basically picture like a graph, right? There's different hills and valleys in that graph, right? Sometimes we can end up maximizing on a given hill, even when there's a bigger hill next to it, right? That's the difference between a local maximum and a global maximum. A global maximum is the highest point in the entire graph. And what we do when we start with a solution is we can end up making that solution the best solution that it can be, even though it's not the best solution, right? So we can maximize from where we start off, we can get it as good as it can ever get. And we'll do that if we're a good innovator, a good product manager. But that might not be the absolute best solution for the customer. And so when you take a step back from a given solution and actually focus on the problem, you can actually look across all the solutions to try to approach that global maximization and not just a local one. And finally, it's a lot easier to fix a bad solution than it is to fix a bad problem, right? If you end up and really understand your problem and then you end up building the solution poorly, you can iterate on that and end up building a good solution, right? But if you don't understand your problem and then you go out and build a solution, you're going to spin your wheels for a very long time trying to make that solution better, because you're going to go, oh, well, the reason people aren't buying my product, the reason people aren't signing up for my website is because I haven't built there's a problem with what I've built, so I'm going to continue making it better. But what you don't realize is that you've actually just solved a bad problem. No one wants that solution. And therefore, you're actually not providing any value. So again, starting with the problem first and not with, I have a solution, helps you really kind of dig into that. Okay, so a bit of an intro there, but what I really want to talk for a while about today is this idea of opportunity mapping. Okay, this is something that I first came across about 1.5 years ago. I was at a product conference in San Francisco, and one of the presenters were talking about kind of an innovative thing that they were doing in their business. It was something called opportunity mapping, and the way that it was kind of first presented as it's a way to help sell your or to interface with stakeholders, right? So if you're not familiar with the idea of a stakeholder, usually you have to convince other people, whether they be investors or other people in your company, to back your product or back the thing that you want to build. And usually that's a very cumbersome process, right? You're going back and forth. Maybe you think this is the best solution, but they think this other thing's the best solution. And you can end up getting into a lot of maybe not arguments, but a lot of back and forth and waste a lot of time. In that particular moment, what she was trying to get across was that we actually shouldn't tie ourselves to any solution. Our job should be making sure we're all aligned to the same problem, and then the solution should flow from that. And that's what an opportunity map allows us to do. So, quick definition of a problem, right? So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about a problem. And this is like the most cliche way of starting an essay of like Webster's dictionary says a problem. That's not what this is. It's a bit broader definition of a problem, right? But in this case, a problem is an unknown that results from any situation in which a person seeks to fulfill a need or accomplish a goal, right? So that's a good start. But there's a second half of this definition. However, problems are problems only when there is a felt need that motivates people to search for a solution in order to eliminate discrepancies. Even if you have a problem, if that problem isn't a felt need, if you don't feel like it needs a solution, when someone goes out and solves it, you're not going to engage in that solution, right? There are plenty of problems that have been solved that went nowhere because the problem was not a felt need, right? And because of that, again, understanding the customer and starting with this definition of a problem, that there has to be essentially a demand for a solution, then we can go from there. Okay. So let's say we went out and started talking to some customers, right? And I asked them, what do you need right now in your life, right? What is the thing that if you could have anything you want, what would make your, what would help you? And they go, man, I need a vacation, right? And I think I would say that too, although I don't know where I would go these days, but I still need a vacation. That's great, okay? And from that, you might start out and saying, okay, well then I'm going to go out and I'm going to make a solution. I'm going to figure out how to get these people the best vacation possible, right? Because that's what the customer told me that they needed. But the problem is sometimes what the customer says they need, while that's a solution, is not actually the best solution for their problem. And their problem ends up being what their struggle is. And I realize that might just sound like a grammatical difference. What's the difference between a need and a struggle? But if I said, what are you struggling with in your life right now? That same person might actually say, I'm struggling with stress and burnout at work. Right? Now, the way that that person sees a solution to that struggle is I need a vacation. But all of a sudden we recognize that if the real problem is not just I need a vacation, but I'm stressed out and burning out at work, then there is a wide variety of possible solutions to that struggle that aren't just a vacation, right? So when we ask the customer, what do you need? The answer that we get back is going to be framed by their experience and the world as it exists today. Meaning they're going to say, I have this struggle, right? They're not going to even vocalize this in their head, but this is what's going to be going on kind of in the subconscious, is they're going to say, I have this struggle. And in the past, when I have been stressed and burnt out, I've fixed that by going on a vacation. Therefore, when you ask me what I need right now, I'm going to say I need a vacation, right? But solving the struggle is where the innovation actually comes, right? If we don't just meet the need the customer says they have, but actually solve the underlying problem, then we're going to upset the market, right? Steve Jobs actually was great at this. Right? He even said, it's not the customer's job to know what they want. Right? That's a really famous Steve Jobs quote, right? Because if you go in and say to the customer, what do you want? They're going to tell you one thing. They're going to tell you the thing that they think is the solution to their problem, but it's probably not the best solution. Okay. So we're going to take a quick breakout, right? So what we're going to do here is I'm going to ask you a couple things. I want you to think of something that you want in life right now, just like that person wanted a vacation. Think about something that you want, right? It can be a house. It can be, we're getting close to dinner. It could be dinner, right? Whatever you want. And the next thing I want you to write down is, if you had that thing, how would you be better off than you are now, right? How does that thing make you better? Right? And then as a third point, I want you to say, what other options could give you that same result? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually send us out real quick into some breakout rooms. Let's see. I'm going to say 7. All right. Now I'm going to send us out. And then what I want you to do, we're going to spend like 5 minutes, just write these down. And I just want you to kind of share amongst the other people in the room and say, these are the things that I wrote down. And then we're going to come back and I'll call on a couple of you to just kind of figure out what are some of the things you wrote down. And then we're going to see how to actually map this out. All right. So here we go. I'm going to send you out. Let me create these rooms. Let me open up my screen here so I can see who's in here. Let's take a look. Let's see who's showing up on my screen. Kate Lynn. This is like the worst feeling in the world, right? It's like, oh my God, the guy just said my name. Tell me, what did you come up with?
I said a new iPhone because I just shattered mine and
Okay. So you just shattered your iPhone. So you need one of those. How does that iPhone make you better?
Being able to communicate easier and get directions to places.
Okay. So those are the things that it does for you. Are there other things that you can think of that would also solve that same need?
I guess like a GPS instead of like the Maps app on my phone. And then, I mean, my laptop I can email from and communicate with.
Okay. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else have anything? You come up. I'll randomly call in some new people. Let's see. Who do we got out there? I'm going to go Sam Edwards. Sam Edwards, you're out there. It's like going down the roll, right?
Yeah. So what I said was I'm actually right now currently studying for the LSAT, and with all this COVID stuff, they have moved the exam to like all online, and that's like really they obviously never done it before, and it's really causing a lot of stress like when preparing for the exam because I've been preparing for an actual in-person exam. So it's just kind of thrown kind of a wrench in all of it. It's caused a lot of stress. So.
Okay. So what's your need? You need less stress right now? Is that your thing, or you need the LSAT back in person?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would love to have the LSAT in person, but that's just unattainable. So, but yeah, I can obviously figure out other ways to prepare for the exam, to where I can increase my confidence, which would ultimately reduce my stress. So.
Gotcha. So there are some things then that if you told me, well, I need an online practice version of the LSAT, right? That's if I just kind of gave you
those are some of the measures that I've actually put in place for sure.
Yeah. And then the next question is, well, why do you need an online version of the LSAT? You go, well, I'm super stressed about taking the LSAT in an online environment. Well, then that right there is then like a huge different problem to go solve, right? And so I think that's a fantastic situation of how if somebody was being really innovative and agile right now, that they would be probably making a good bit of money, because I think a lot of people are probably in your same boat. That's a great idea. Okay.
If anybody's studying,
Yep.
If anybody's studying for the LSAT, there actually is an online LSAT practice. It's through Khan Academy, and it's through LSAT, which is the official test. Anyways, if anybody's curious, it's very helpful.
We go. See, someone has gone out there and tried to meet that need already, right? That's great. Okay, so with that, so we're sharing some of our answers here. Let's kind of dive into the next thing, which is going to be actually seeing how to now graph that out on what's called an opportunity tree. Okay, so what do I really want right now, right? If you really want to know my personal life, is I want a personal assistant, right? That's like the thing that I would love to have, right? Because like that, I'm super busy, right? I need someone to kind of keep track of all the things that are going on, right? Kind of earlier, like I have a job at Walmart. I'm teaching a class at the University of Arkansas. I'm actually taking a class in data science, right? So I feel like basically every moment of my day is kind of taken up, right? Now, that's what I want, right? That's my need. The question is the kind of the next portion of that, right, is what's actually going to make my life better? Why do I want that personal assistant? Is actually because I want more time with my family, right? I have 4 kids, right? And 2 nights a week, because I teach a night class, they go to bed where I don't see them. I'm doing my data science stuff on the weekends, right? I just would love more time with my family. So if that's the reason I want a personal assistant, then what are the other things that exist out there that would give me more family time, right? Well, maybe better calendar management, or just learning to say no to some things, right? Not that I would say no to teaching at the University of Arkansas. I actually sought that out. Like, you guys are great. But those are the kind of things that, again, I could, if I was trying to solve this problem for someone, I could stand up a personal assistant business, right? And say, if you need a personal assistant, I will provide personal assistance. I might try to build a calendar management app that actually looks for time in your calendar and blocks it out for personal time, right? Or I could write a self-help book that teaches people how to say no and maintain a good work-life balance. There's a lot of different solutions to that problem, right? And just by reframing the discussion from someone told me a personal assistant is the need to the broader problem and then solutioning off that allows us to reframe this into the right context. Okay, so let's do like a case study real quick, right? So let's look at Facebook. I don't even know if Facebook is a cool thing anymore. I should have used TikTok, but I don't even know what that is, right? So I'm going to go with Facebook. And let's look at something that is fairly new. I realize it's not like the newest thing, but fairly new, which is the individual reactions that you can make to post. All right. So let's say we went out and asked somebody and say, hey, what should we put on Facebook next? And that person goes, you know what? I really want to just be notified when my friends post. The really bad answer to that is, sure, okay, we'll do that. And then you go out and build that thing, right? That's a really bad approach to solving a problem, is just taking someone's immediate need and meeting it. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about why when we get to jobs to be done in a little bit. But that first answer, as we've kind of seen, is not really the problem, right? They're not just like sitting at night, lying awake in bed, wishing they had story notifications on their Facebook app, right? That's not the thing that is actually that they want, nor is it the thing that probably we want as a company. That's the other thing you have to worry about, is what are the things that we want to prioritize that drive business value, right? So the next question to ask, if somebody gives you a possible feature or a thing to build, is to say, why is this even worth building? Why would we even consider building a notification from new stories from friends, right? Okay, well, there is some business value to it. And that business value is that it should increase engagement, right? You're more likely to engage with stories that your friends write. And so if a close friend writes a story, we're going to alert you to it. Great. Okay. But now let's use that framework that we looked at a minute ago. And we know, okay, the thing that we're actually trying to do here is increase engagement. Well, are there other things that we could possibly build that would increase engagement? And we could go, oh, well, yeah, there are some other things that we could do that would increase engagement. We could come up with other types of reactions. We could highlight past stories, right? We should suggest you review restaurants. These are all things that would make you engage more with the application than what you're doing today, right? And you could sit in a room and brainstorm these things once you realize the problem that you're trying to solve is not, I need to know when my friends post, but the business problem that you're trying to solve is, I want to drive engagement with the application more. I want people to use Facebook more often. That's why I want to build the story notification. Well, once we know those things, what we can do is break this out. So at the top, we write our actual problem, right? I'm going to call it an opportunity, right? It's the thing that we are actually shooting for to fix. It's that struggle. It's the problem. And then we have possible solutions under it, right? Here are the things that we could do that would possibly solve that problem or meet that opportunity. Okay. The question is, did that really help us? Well, no, it gave us a lot more options, but it didn't actually help us choose between any of these, right? You and I could sit here for an hour and we could argue which of these is the best, right? But if you come up with enough of these, what you start realizing is that not all of these are the same. In fact, the two on the left, if we look at it, we have notify people of new stories and other reactions. Those are ideas of getting people to interact with existing content, right? Then the two on the right are actually trying to highlight past stories. And Facebook actually does this too, by the way, right? You probably get notifications of like, hey, go look at your past stories, right? And then you can share those stories. And then it will say, hey, and I think Facebook does this. I know Google does. It says, hey, I saw that you were just at, Slim Chickens today. Do you want to write a review on it? Right? Again, those two things are actually generating new content. So what we can do is actually group these together in buckets. So then we know the overall goal is to increase engagement. That's the thing that we want to actually, that's the end result. But now we can say, okay, well, how do we want to increase engagement? Do we want to increase engagement on existing stories, or do we want to increase engagement by people creating new content, right? And that's a business decision, right? That is something that you can talk about and you can put a business value to, and you can say, okay, well, we think that if people engage with more stories, their time on the app will go up by, 5%. But if we get them sharing new stories, that will increase their time by this much. And those are things you can go out and test, right? And then once you know which path down this tree you want to take, so this is kind of your overall goal, then you've got some different types of opportunities here, and eventually you lead to solutions at the bottom, right? And you only really want to argue, and again, argue is the wrong word, but when you're trying to decide which solution you want to take, you should only want to be comparing solutions that are in the same part of the tree, right? We should not have a choice between notifying new users of new stories and suggesting reviews, because those are going to have very different results in our application. One is going to be more engagement on the current app, and the other one is going to be sharing new content. I should decide which branch I want to go down way before I get to the solutioning step, right? Because the problem is up here. Which problem am I trying to solve is everything above the bottom layer. And then once I decide where in the tree I am, then I can start looking at the different solutions, right? And this is kind of what that conference presenter was sharing with us about 2 years ago, was when you're talking with the stakeholders, the other people who care about what you build, and that's going to be people like users, that's going to be the CEO of the company, that's going to be your co-founders, that's going to be really anyone who has a stake in what you build. You should spend almost all of your time arguing over which part of the tree you want to be in, not what solution you want to implement, right? You're figuring out what the problem is, and then the solution is data-driven, right? Because what I can do is I can come down here. If I say I want people to engage current stories more often, how about I build an MVP of both of these and see which one actually causes higher engagement? At that point, my solution is picked for me. All of my work went into solving the problem, right? So I don't tie my worth to the solution that I pick, right? My value is in helping guide the company to the right problem, right? Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing we did just a second ago, but we're actually gonna do it for a website or a product that you own, okay? So what I want you to do is, it can be something you use every day, right? So to kind of Kate's point, it could be her iPhone, right? I'm sure if you use the iPhone a lot, then there might be something that you would love to fix about your iPhone. I wish the iPhone did blank, right? Or product, website, whatever you want it to be. Then what I want you to think about is write down the opportunity. What is that kind of next level up in the map that feature or solution that you're trying to say it needs is actually trying to solve? And then I want you to think about what are some other possible features that could also meet that same opportunity, right? And then we're going to come back and share. Okay, so I'm going to send people out I'm going to recreate our breakout rooms here. So you get with different people, and then I'm going to send you out the room. So here we go. All right. So hopefully that was kind of fun to go in and now not just think about this kind of very broad need, right? But to look at, say, what is a product that I use a lot and kind of dive into. Anybody willing to share, or I've already got names picked out that I'm going to go through and call on. So. No? Okay. Well, I will randomize it out then. So let's say, Jonathan Calando. Are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Cool. Hey, Jonathan. Cool.
Yeah,
so what's the product or website that you were taking a look at?
So we were looking at the the iPhone and the Photos app specifically. So basically, I mean, it seems like everybody gets to the point where you run out of storage on your phone because of so many photos that you might go someplace and take 20 photos of something and then revisit one of those photos every other year. You know, there's just a lot of waste, but it's also hard to go through. Like when I'm on planes, a lot of times I'll just go through and delete photos and spend my time that way. But basically I thought of either at the end of the day, having a little banner that pops up about, you know, deleting photos or having like an algorithm that you could hook into like Oculus or one of the other compatible VR systems and grouping photos by likeness and also by date, which is what the algorithm will look at. So you could go in and spend half hour, 45 minutes and gut, you know, 90% of the contents of your phone by deleting 19 of the 20. So it would allow you to actually keep the photos that are meaningful to you and be able to go back and revisit them without spending all day scrolling. And then it would also give you more memory on your phone.
No, that's so, all right. That is a really cool idea. Let me ask a question here and say, what is, if you had to very succinctly kind of say what the problem that's solving is, what would you say the problem would be?
It lets you, instead of just having photos, it lets you access your photos because less is more.
That is a great, because when you first started describing it, right? When you first were kind of, I was in the back of my head, the problem that I was originally hearing was I keep running out of space on my phone, right? And while that is a problem and it's part of this problem, I think what you said kind of in that follow-up actually is the closer thing. And it's a problem I run into all the time, which is I actually have so many photos, I never go back and look at them. Right. So I heard something, this was maybe a year ago, but I heard like a really like depressing thing. It's like, there's at some point in your life, you hit a point where you have more digital photos than you have time to go back and look at them. Right. And I was like, oh gosh, that sounds terrible. Right. And kind of, I like the way you put that, right. It's like, it's a less is more. I want to see all of my best photos and get rid of the others. Are there other things that you can think of that would solve that same problem?
Yeah, of course. I guess like anything else, discipline. And look, if you want to take a bunch of photos to get the perfect shot or something, that's fine. But maybe at the end of a trip or at the end of whatever event, just go back and delete them. And that's a small thing you can do that that'll help keep your phone.
Yeah. One of the things that like that immediately pops in my head, right, is like you could take this idea and I kind of where you were going, I think, which is, you know, at the end of the day, or if I take 20 in a row, right, to come in and say, hey, it looks like you just took 20 of a very similar photo. Which of these do you like the best? And can I delete the rest? Right. That's probably another feature Apple could implement that kind of in the moment lets you choose between and then just delete the rest of them. Right. I think that's a great idea. Anyone else have other problems or websites they were running into?
Actually, in my group, I discussed about my issue with Google Calendars because I've been using that for a while to keep track of my day and etc. And actually, a lot of my friends have switched over from Google Calendar to Outlook calendars for one reason. Outlook calendars has a lot more variety when it comes to being able to organize your day, meaning that there is stuff where you can connect it to like to-do list, to be it I cannot think of another thing right now, but I swear there's other things as well. But for Google Calendars, there isn't even extension, like even an official Chrome extension where you can like have a to-do list, or you can't even download Google Calendar on a Windows or PC unless the only way you could do it is if you have a Chromebook, which by the way is not even the best laptop out there, let's be honest. And so I just genuinely, the only thing I brought up over here is honestly, Google took the initiative to like diversify or add more variety to their planning apps or just Google Calendar even, people will be
Yeah.
more interested in staying with it.
No, I think that's a great call out, right? That there's a lot of functionality that exists in a competitor, right? And so there's probably a wide variety of things there that would increase engagement with Google Calendar. And that's a pretty broad ask, right? So the next thing you want to go do is probably analyze what a lot of those different features are, bucket them, and say, which of those problems do we want to solve first? Kind of to your point, do we want to tackle something like a Chrome extension, which makes it more portable, right? Do we want to tackle integration with other applications like To-Do and like Trello and some of those other things that I would want it to handle, right? So I think it's a great point that sometimes it's very a broad ask, and we want to even break that down further. All right, we've got about 15 minutes left. I want to very briefly talk about jobs to be done, right? The idea behind jobs to be done has actually been around for a very long time in the conceptual sense, and maybe in the last 10 years, people have really started talking about it in kind of the design and product world. Here's two different quotes, and I use the top one actually in my email signature every time I send an email, and it says, people don't want a 1/4-inch drill bit, they want a 1/4-inch hole, right? So when we think about building products, again, we're not thinking about the actual solution, we're thinking about the problem that they're solving, right? The founder of Revlon, Charles Revson, said, in the factory, we make cosmetics, but in the drugstore, we sell hope. And that's a really interesting quote. And what he was kind of getting at there, right, is that, again, what problem is the cosmetic solving, right? For him, he saw Revlon as a way of changing your self-image, right? It wasn't just, I need to wear makeup or I need lipstick. It was, I want to look better. Now, again, he founded Revlon, so that's going to be his view. I'm not saying you have to wear makeup to look better, right? But again, he was viewing it as there's this struggle that I have, and I'm gonna solve that struggle. So back in like 73, someone named William Powers actually published this figure on the left. And if you look at it, you go, man, that looks really similar to something we were just looking at a minute ago. And if you notice, they break up the different levels of opportunity, right? So there's this ideal self. There's the thing that you would want to be in a perfect world. And then there's the principles that guide that ideal self. Like, I want to be a very thoughtful person, right? So then maybe the things that you do to be a thoughtful person is, I'm going to go, cook dinner every night. I'm going to read 3 books a month. I'm going to do these things that I think help me achieve that principle. And then to do those different things, I actually have to go out and approach a series of tasks, right? To prepare dinner, I have to slice the broccoli, I have to cook the broccoli. One of the things that we have to be very careful about is solving things at the motor control or the do goal level, because those are very fleeting. People will change those all the time. People's principles, the things that they would like to be, don't change that often. So if you can frame your problem in, again, this is more like those struggles. I wish I was a more thoughtful person, right? I wish I had more family time. Those are those principles that people struggle with and want to achieve one day. And if we frame our problem in those scenarios, then we're much more likely to solve the underlying psychological point, as opposed to like a physical need that could be temporary, right? So there's this whole theory called jobs to be done. And basically the idea is that people hire products to do something, right? To solve that problem. And it's all around taking your actual self, how things are today, and bringing them to that ideal self, right? And the thing in the middle is I need something to help me translate myself from where I am today to that ideal self. And that is progress, right? So if we can solve the thing and pitch it to the consumer as this is the thing that will transform you from today to where you want to be, then that is a way of very easily getting them to hire your product, right? So an example on this, right? So how things are today, let's take a look at grocery delivery, right? Because it's something big in the Walmart world right now, right? Like, again, I have a bunch of kids. What do things look like? I end up going shopping super late at night because I have to wait till my kids are asleep, right? Or I have super amounts of anxiety dragging 4 kids to Walmart, right? And when I do that, I'm in a super rush because if anyone's ever shopped with a bunch of kids, not a fun thing. So I'm just running through it's like Supermarket Sweep for a super old reference. It's on Netflix. You can go watch it. But go out just grabbing stuff off the shelf, right? And I'm making poor choices, right? I'm not being the best shopper that I can be, right? So where I would like to be, I would like to be serving my family quality food. Again, I want more family time. I don't want stress. I want things to be convenient, right? So what are things that would help facilitate that change in my life? Grocery delivery is absolutely one, right? But we've seen other solutions to this same problem. Meal box kits, I've done a couple of those, things like Blue Apron and HelloFresh, where the food just shows up at your door, right? There are personal shopper programs out there where people will build menus for you and then either bring you the food, right? Walmart has tested people literally delivering it into your refrigerator while you're not home, right? Which is just scary to me, but I realize some people think that would be great. And then other people literally hire people to go do this individually, like a housemaid or another service, right? All of those different things are possible solutions to this problem. And I don't want to say any of them are better than any of the others, right? Because that's not the point. We've already said tying yourself to a single solution is not the right thing. We want to spend our time in this upper portion understanding the problem that we're trying to solve. Okay, so we've talked about a couple things today. I want to give you a little bit, just real quick, some resources. You can dig into this much deeper. If that opportunity mapping stuff sounded really interesting to you, there's like 3 days worth of reading on it out at producttalk.org. So feel free to dig into stuff out there. There's even more, like if you just want to learn about being a good product manager or designer and all the design thinking that you guys do, it's a great place to learn. Specifically, if you want to dig into the jobs to be done and understanding more about that framework of kind of understanding the world, and it's really focused on what makes the consumer make that hiring decision, right? That and how do we kind of help people get to that point? There's some great resources out at jtbd.info. And there's a lot of other stuff on the web, but I found that's probably one of the best kind of places out there. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to leave some time just for some Q&A. Also, my email and LinkedIn are down here. Feel free to reach out if you ever want to connect or just kind of talk about this stuff. This is stuff that, this is my daily job. I love talking about it and kind of getting into it. So with that said, I'm happy to, chat, answer questions as you guys would like to.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Megan, and so I really enjoyed your talk, and you quoted a lot of good quotes from some people and linked some resources. I'm wondering if you had any additional resources like podcasts or books that you especially like.
Yeah, so there are several. When it comes to, so are you looking for things just like for product in general or specifically around this kind of solving the kind of getting to the root problem?
Getting to the root problem, but anything else that you like.
Yeah, so I would say one thing that I always tell people, if you're not as familiar with just kind of the basic, if you've never read it, read Inspired, right? It is kind of the product manager, I would say, Bible that's out there, right? It is just a great thing. And I think the subtitle is Building Technology That People Want to Buy, or something close to that. It is a great book to kind of dig into. I will, as far as podcast, I'll say I've listened to podcasts less in the last like 2 years because my home is like 30 seconds from my office. And so I don't get to spend a lot of time in the car. I'm trying to remember the one I listened to a lot. It was Product Rocket or Rocket Launch or something along that lines. I'll look it up, and what I'll do is I'll send it out to the office, and then how about this? I'll write out like a long list of resources, books, podcasts, whatever, and then we'll get them to send that out to the attendee list, and you guys can just have a full kind of resource list. That's a great question though, because there's so much of this stuff that's out there. It's just hard to kind of keep track of all of it, especially like what's sitting out there. I will say if one great blog, like if you want to read, I realize no one blogs anymore, but it's a website with a ton of content, and they post a lot of videos from their conferences, is mindtheproduct.org. So MIND, theproduct.org. They actually were the conference I was talking about before, but they run a twice a year conference, and they post all the videos from the entire conference there. So while going to the conference costs like $1,000, you can actually watch all the videos for free afterwards. So it's a great resource just to kind of see what people are talking about in the kind of cutting edge industry. Other questions?
Hi, Taylor. I have a question.
Sure,
I'm Stephanie, and I just want to say you had a great talk, and I really love the center on the problem rather than the solution, and that the problem is, and understanding the problem really is the solution. But I wanted to kind of know a little bit about your role at Walmart and how this kind of fits into that.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. So, I will say I have used, especially when it comes to the kind of the opportunity mapping. One of the things that has been a big struggle in my time at Walmart is getting everyone aligned to the thing that we're actually solving, right? And one of the things we didn't get to in that opportunity map is that sometimes people will suggest solutions, and there's a problem that shows up in product a lot, which shows up in a lot of things. It's called the HIPPO problem, and HIPPO is an acronym for the highest paid person opinion. That you will get very high leadership in the company says, well, we just need to go do X. And sometimes that X is the right solution, and sometimes it's not, right? So having a framework like the opportunity map that you can take that suggestion and say, okay, well, that thing that you're suggesting fits in over here, but we've aligned and we've said in all our meetings, the problem that we're actually solving is this thing over here. And so what it actually allows us to do is ignore some of the distractions or allow a conversation around that distraction that doesn't seem like an attack, but like we are working together to build the best product, right? So it's not like my opinion versus yours. It's a continual work to get to the right solution. And so it's really helped frame some of those discussions. I will say the other thing that I have been on products when they are going well and products when they are not going well. And the times when the product has not been going well was when everyone on the product team if you asked them what's the problem you're solving, every single person would have given a different answer, right? So when you have 4 people working on a product and they can't agree on what the product that they're building is actually trying to do, then that's going to cause chaos when it comes to the things that you're building and why you're building them. And so I have found just from like an ability to move forward and to even build something that's worth putting out to users, this helps align a product team, not even talking about stakeholders and everyone else, but just aligning the people who are actually doing the work to make sure that we all know what the thing that we're doing is, and then that allows us to then go out, because once you have 4 people saying, no, this is the thing we're doing, we're drawing a line in the sand, then that sets up the conversation with really anyone else in the organization to be a much stronger group to approach, right? And it also just makes getting alignment with everyone else a lot easier too, because it's 4-on-1 at that point. So cool. Other question? I think we got like 2 minutes.
I think I saw
If
Jet
not,
raise
Natalie,
his hand.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I think I saw Jet raised his hand.
Yeah, Jet.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. So yeah, I did have a quick question. I got some of the idea of an answer from your last response, but I was just thinking, it's like, I've been on some project teams where it's like, we're sort of handed we're handed the problem at the very beginning, and then we're handed a part of a solution, or at least some very specific parameters that indicates they want a very specific kind of solution. Like how do you work within that sort of structure? Yeah, that is a tough thing when almost the solution is prescribed to you. It's a rough spot to be in. I would say the first thing that I would do in that situation is at least go out and verify that problem. And I will say one of the best things, so we had an MBA intern a couple of years ago at Walmart, and she was working on one of the kind of a system that helps buyers negotiate. And when she started, and over the summer, and she had like 8 weeks to kind of build out this program. And she kind of, in those summer internships, what they do is they basically give you a problem and then say, just go and like, here's kind of where you want to go with it. And you have like 8 weeks to come up with like a prototype or a solution. So you don't have like a ton of time. And I want to say it was like week 2 of that program where she came in, and then she kind of called all the leaders together and goes, guys, I actually don't think the problem you've assigned me is a problem. I think this is the problem. And she had data, she had user interviews, she had a lot of artifacts to back up what she was saying, so much so that like there really couldn't be an argument at that point. Now, you know, like you could always say someone's going to say, go build it anyway. And I don't know what to say to that other than, you know, have a very strong conversation and stick to your guns. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe I want to find another place to work. I don't know, right? Like it's a, part of it comes down to, especially if you're going into product, right? You have to be allowed to do the job that you've been hired to do. And part of that job is coming up with the problem and then working with your design partners to come up with the solution, right? And test those solutions with users. So I will say I've definitely been in that spot. It can be hairy. And part of it, I think then is a way out of it is to structure it in a way to help everyone feel like they're on the same page and solving. And if you don't feel like it's the right problem, then come up with really good data-driven arguments why it's not. I think that'd be my best suggestion. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's a great question. All right, Natalie, I think we're probably out of time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming.
I am sending the survey in the chat right now. If you all would it should just take a minute really to fill it out and give us some feedback so we can improve for the rest of the workshops. And I've also put the rest of the fall workshop schedule in the chat as well, in case you all want to attend more. So thank you all so much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday.